International genealogist company. I've known Dave for a long time. I'm sure most of you have, and if you haven't, he is certainly the man to know, especially when it comes to hunting and tracking people down. That's what you do, isn't it? Yeah.
Not personally.
No.
But
Yeah.
I've been known to choose people.
just on a Sunday.
Just on a Sunday.
On a Sunday. So we're going to be talking about genealogy and what Dave does. So we're going to stay away from mental capacity to as much as we can. I know every time, because you've come and spoke at Nellie and we've come to conferences of yours, and I always say to you, can you tell me what the magic is of genealogy? And you've yet to explain it to me.
I've no idea.
But do you want to explain what, because a genealogist sounds so grandiose.
It does, doesn't it?
What do you do?
We find people.
Okay.
That's basically it. We do what it says on the tin, basically. So if you've got, say, from private client, you've got a will where you've got beneficiaries that you need to trace, then we can trace the beneficiaries. If you can't trace the administrator of the will, we can trace them and we can find out what's happened to them.
So it's not just about getting the money to the person, it could be
not necessarily, no.
Identifying the executor.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's from that for private client, for when somebody dies intestate, when things appear on the bona vacantia list, if a local authority...
What?
Bona vacantia, empty goods. The Treasury solicitor.
Oh, okay.
So they're based now down in Croydon. For those of you that have been doing the job long enough, you'll remember they were in Queen Anne's Gate in Westminster, and they had over 200 staff at one time dealing with things.
Wow.
So they would get the referrals coming in from local authorities who dealt with funerals, for example, under the Public Health Act.
Yeah.
PHA funerals. Or from banks where an account has lain dormant for years, so they'll send that through, and then they would look into it, and if they can't find anything, then they would advertise it, and the list would come out in, I think it was the Times and the Evening Standard it came out. And you get a list every Thursday, and you get the person's name, you get the level of the estate and who referred it, and then the next day or the next hour you get phone calls coming in from genealogists saying, what do you know about this estate? And
I bet you get thousands of members of public going, that was my grandma.
Yeah. And they actually stopped putting the value on estates at one stage.
I wonder why.
Well, yeah, because people were then working out, and I do recall, and this in my dim and distant memory recesses in there somewhere, there was a case where a person's estate was advertised, or loads of estates were advertised, and this guy was going around finding their addresses, clearing out their properties.
Oh, yeah, of course. You put up a burglar's list, haven't you? Yeah.
So it was something like that. So it all changed, and the BV, or the Bona Vacantia Registry, would not take a case if you knew who next of kin were. So obviously this is where genealogists step in and say, if you know the next of kin, we'll trace them. And we've developed it even more, because now what happens with Bona Vacantia, it's, I don't know how many staff it is, I think it's only more than half a dozen or something like that, based in an office in Croydon now, that will get a referral coming in, that won't look and see if there's a will, won't do a will check or anything, they'll just advertise it straight away. And lo and behold, all genealogists are working on it competitively, and that's where Heir Hunters comes in, the TV series, where you've got people travelling around. It's not as exciting as that, trust me.
Well, that's kind of depressing.
It is depressing, yeah. It's not as quick and as fast paced as it seems on the telly, but it is.
So you don't just do a quick Google search, find Auntie Noreen from
it's not
levels.
It's not necessarily a quick Google search. I mean, the researchers actually have a wealth of databases, a wealth of systems at their fingertips. Yeah. So we've got everyday finders. Have got somebody in the British Library. We've got somebody in the Scottish records, we've got somebody in Ireland in the Irish records. So if a case comes through, you can ring them through, right, we need the details on this. We've got births, deaths, marriages that they can go through there. Online databases that they can use.
I thought you were going to say online dating for a second. We tracked her down through Tinder.
Well, stranger things have happened.
Well,
trust me.
I could believe it.
I could believe that would happen. Actually, I have not heard a story of that yet, but I wouldn't be surprised that somebody's managed to do that. But there's lots of ways that you can find people. I mean, the best example I give, and sorry I'll bore you if you've heard this story from me before. When I first joined Finders 8 years ago, I sat down with Katie Watson, who's our senior lead in the public sector. She's a public sector manager, my boss now. So, morning, Katie. So it could be nice. But she sat down with me. She said, right, we've got this case coming. It came in from a local hospital, where somebody had died, and there was a rumour that he had a wife and a daughter. Okay, we don't know anything about him. Within 15 minutes, she found that he'd been married twice. So he'd been divorced and married again. And we found out that he had, I think it was 2 daughters and a son. And within the hour, Katie had contacted them.
Wow.
And then they said, yeah, we'll deal with Dad. And they took it all on from...
Katie's your boss, isn't she? Yeah, you were talking about her earlier, saying how wonderful she is.
Yeah, she's wonderful. Yeah.
So
don't drop me in it.
So, do you I mean, you've been with Finders for 8 years, so I suppose it's difficult for you to say. So, but things have got easier since the internet and since digital technology.
I think it's a lot easier. I mean,
or is it that the world's bigger and more spread out now? So
there's that as well. There's the two things that it's certainly we're finding. Internationally, we're getting a lot more cases of people who come to the UK to live.
Yeah.
And, for whatever reason, their families are in Africa, they're in Asia, they're in North America, they're in Europe. So...
Well, we've got Nigerian Fumi. Yeah. And Chris is from Hong Kong.
Yeah.
But their families are all in their home countries.
That's it. Yeah. So we've got that now that when, for instance, we've got a case that comes through for, say, West Africa, we've got people now that we can go to seek people there. It's not easy, but it can be done, and we proved that with a case we had, which is one of our many case studies that we've got, where a gentleman had come to the UK in the 60s, left his children in Nigeria, lived here, bought a council house that ended up being a townhouse, one of the big townhouses in London, ended up having £1 million plus estate. Lived in absolute squalor as well, if I remember. And we found his children, and they were able to inherit the money.
That's fantastic.
So their lifestyle where they live is incredibly altered. Yeah. But they had no communication with him. He hadn't made a will or anything like that. So many cases that we get is where somebody hasn't made the will, hasn't prepared for their life, and hands up, I still haven't made mine, but it's me and my wife. Yeah, I know, I keep on saying it. There's my wife and I, so we know it will go to each other if anything happens, or our two sons. But people really should, and I really should make a will just to make sure that, my extensive Air Force patch collection gets dealt with properly.
So you don't want that going to anyone and everyone, do you?
No, I don't. And my boys' eyes lit up when they realised how much that patch collection is worth. So, so there you go. But it's the different type of cases we deal with. We're members of the International Association of Professional Probate Researchers, Genealogists and Heir Hunters, the IEPPR, which is an association around the world.
You've said this twice now. Heir Hunters.
Heir Hunters.
Heir Hunters.
Yes.
And genealogy. What's the difference?
It's not.
It's not. It's just what you decide.
It's not. It's what Heir Hunters was the TV program. Yeah. So that's basically what we're known as.
I wasn't sure whether one was more investigative and sort of...
No, it's the same thing. So probate genealogy is heir hunting, basically, but it's a flashier name and it's better for TV. The probate genealogist probably wouldn't work well on BBC One on 10 Tuesday morning.
It's not something I'd watch, I'll be honest.
No, but Heir Hunters, that sounds interesting, because everybody's got this thing now. I mean, obviously, you've got all the TV programmes, Who Do You Think You Are, Long Lost Relatives, and all those kind of things now that are on TV, and people are really interested in their ancestry. And obviously the websites like Ancestry and Find My Past, people can log in and build up their family trees, and people tell me, oh yeah, I've done my family tree, I've gone back to the 15th century. I mean,
yeah, my sister did ours. She found that we are related to the Pendleton Witch, and a Russian Jew. I don't know how quite the two marry, together. So I'm a Russian Jewish witch.
Okay.
Which is great.
I've no idea what mine is. I've never looked at it. It's not really something that's floated my boat, believe it or not, being in the area.
I think if you find something a cool link to something in your past, there's sort of something exciting about that. I was hoping that I'd find. Is it the island of Brooklyn? No, it's the island of Manhattan, isn't it?
Yeah.
That is allegedly owned by one family.
Yeah.
But there's no heirs. And if an heir can be found, they're entitled to backdated rent for every building and every property on the island. So they'd wipe out the planet's entire.
Goodbye, Elon Musk.
finance.
That wouldn't be a bad thing, would it?
No,
There you go.
That'd be a nice phone call to. I assume actually finders would be quite happy dealing.
We'd be very happy dealing with something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
We obviously do talk to people. One of the things that we're really proud of is that our researchers know how to break news to people. They've done cruise bereavement training. Obviously, they've done some training with you as well on understanding capacity issues.
Yeah, we did capacity and financial vulnerability.
That's it. Yeah, and we're looking to do something else with you, I think, as well. Yeah. So that's good, safeguarding. So we've got those things built in that we know that they know where to look for the triggers. If there's something that they don't feel that's right, they can raise the alarm or go down there.
Because it sounds almost like a lottery win, doesn't it? In some ways, you're going to find out some distant relative that you've never heard of, you've never had contact with, has left you £5 million, or whatever it is, and
or
that's
£50.
Or £50. But there's no that dream scenario, that Heir Hunters scenario.
You never think it's going to happen to you.
Isn't an emotional thing, is it? It's just that, oh my God, look, I've won the lottery almost. But actually, these are emotional phone calls.
They are, and it's bizarre because I'm on the other side as well. I'm a beneficiary in an estate. My dad's cousin passed away a couple of years ago, and local authority dealt with it because I'd never heard of the lady. And through that, I found out that my grandmother, who died in the 50s, was a twin. Didn't know that. Dad never told me that.
Wow.
Probably never thought it was important enough. And we found out all about the family, and we've got that particular family tree. So, we've been talking to my cousins who are all over the place, Nottingham, Australia, and finding out that we've got this person that we never knew about and her life. And I managed to get from the lady that was a landlady. She looked after her for years. She rented the flat from this person for about 30 years or something like that. And she came back to me and she said, yeah, we're clear, but I took everything that was important, I think. She took all the photos and the clippings and that, and I looked at her and she was a spitting image of my aunt. And it was like, wow, that's bizarre. And then when I contacted my cousins and said, you need to look at this photo, it's your mum. And they've all gone, yeah, we can't believe it. She was dead ringer for my Aunt Barbara, and it's really weird being on that side. It's not a massive estate. We don't expect to inherit much. Let's say 50 quid possibly.
But at the same point, you'll found out who you are.
We found out a little bit more about Dad's family, and as I say, I didn't know there were twins on my father's side. I know there are on my mother's side, but certainly didn't know it was on my father's side.
Yeah.
So it's skipped every generation as far as I can work out. So I've warned my two boys, be aware, because it skips a couple of generations, doesn't it? Then it reappears apparently, something like that in genes. So it was fascinating to find that out. It's fascinating to see what's going on behind the scenes, talking to the solicitors and everything like that. And it's just one of those, those moments that you've got. You've got coming in. Yeah, we've got a question.
Yeah. Okay, sorry. Within the law, attorneys and court-appointed deputies, court-appointed deputies are the most recognised people in terms of subject matter you have been discussing, although next of kin is required to confirm, divulge other hidden information. So how do we relate these subjects and beneficiaries? Do you want me to read that again?
Right, so, I mean, my background is court protection, deputyship. I used to work in local authorities, took redundancy 8 years ago.
Good question, by the way.
Finders, yeah. So how does it relate? you've obviously got to verify that the next of kin who they are. So we obviously ask them for, we go through the records and we believe that you are, the words are, we believe that you are a beneficiary. And we ask them to prove who they are.
Yeah.
So, obviously passport, birth record, driving licence, those kind of things, they will come out as the verification of their identity. Then obviously we make sure that they've signed on the dotted line. If they've signed with us, obviously they have a 14-day cooling off period if they don't want to take our services and deal with it themselves. And then obviously solicitors are appointed and they then verify the documents. So it's done by the solicitors, not by us, but we get the
So
documents
you're
provided.
finding everything.
We find
the
everything.
Solicitors then deal.
Then the solicitors deal with the probate side of it. So probate isn't dealt with by finders. We don't deal with that side of it.
You're the hunters. You hunt down not just the person, but make sure that you've got all of the documents required, all of the information, all the confirmation.
We provide the information.
Yeah.
So we get that to the solicitor. There is that line of integrity between us and the solicitor. The solicitor acts on behalf of the beneficiaries, administers the estate.
So I suppose then the next question is, why don't the solicitors just do it for themselves?
Well, have they got the resources to do it?
Yeah.
So it's easier that you've got probate genealogists and solicitors can come to us and talk about it. I won't go into funding or anything like that because I'll probably get it wrong, knowing me. But it is a paid-for service, so we obviously make a living from it. Obviously, the main thing is if we're finding next of kin, say for a local authority, the main thing is that the local authority doesn't then have to deal with the funeral, so we take that onus and responsibility away from them, so less pressure on the local authority.
You have a charity as well, don't you?
We've got the funeral fund, so local authorities can come to us if they've got a funeral that they've got to do for a person. If they've no estate and we can't trace any next of kin, then we'll contribute towards the funeral costs. And we've done that several times. Yeah. You don't get much call for it, but it's there.
I mean, going back to, sorry, I think your name was Jeffat. Apologies if I said that wrong. I mean, it's the idea of solicitors doing your role and bringing it in-house. I mean, they haven't got the connection in the British Library, or they haven't got the access to the specialist.
Yeah,
and that's the truth, isn't it? What you're doing is very niche. It's very specialist.
It is, but there's the other things we can do.
What the solicitors do for the probate is very niche and very specialist as well.
And you've got that direct break in responsibilities. So you've got the solicitors are dealing for the estate, they're dealing for the beneficiaries, they're responsible to them, whereas we're responsible to find all the information, cross the T's, dot the I's, and provide other services. For instance, if we find 6 out of 7 beneficiaries, one's gone missing, gone walkabout in Australia. Sorry, I always use that, but that's literally
so what happens in that case? They're alive, that
if we can't find them, then we'll put in missing beneficiary insurance. Okay. So the missing beneficiary insurance is put in, it's provided by Aviva, so it's underwritten by them, and if that person comes forward, and we've done, they ensure that we've done our due diligence on this, we've done everything we can to find the person, Aviva then approves it and puts the missing beneficiary insurance. And it's similar with a will as well, because many people make a will and it gets lost. I mean, the usual scenario around that is they've made it 20 years ago with the solicitor that's closed down and been taken over by another firm, and that other firm has the records. You should be able to find that through the SRA, and then you go to that firm, you check with them, and they say, "Oh, we haven't got the records, we can't find it." So there's a missing will. Yeah. I won't say which particular solicitors did this, but put everything in a lockup, and it got flooded, so they lost everything.
Yeah. Things happen, don't they?
Yeah. So it wasn't in secure storage. So that all happened. We put the missing will policy in place with Aviva. And the will never doesn't turn up, or if it does turn up, then the insurance covers the payout, and the beneficiaries then don't have to pay money back. Yeah,
because it's not their fault.
Yeah. So we've got those things that we do there. I mean, there's lots of services we do for deputyship teams in local authorities and for solicitors. Unoccupied property insurance we deal with. Missing asset searches is a huge thing for local authorities. When they get a case coming through and they don't know anything about the person, they can go and, if they've got the court order,
how are you dealing with digital assets? I'm thinking, I've got an app with shares on it.
Yeah.
And I'm very much aware that in I mean, there's like £5 on there, on average.
Yeah.
But those shares in 20 years' time could be worth £500.
Could be.
And I've forgotten all about it because it was only a fiver. And
the asset search will hit well over 150, nearly 200 financial institutions, and say, "Do you know this person?"
Yeah.
And they'll either come back, "Yeah, we've got records," or "No."
So as long as it's FCA registered as such,
Yeah.
Then you should be able to link something.
It's a huge thing now, and I know a lot of local authority colleagues who go out and do searches when they've got a public health funeral comes through, and they look for a bank record, and it's on a laptop, and they can't get into the laptop because it's password protected. You can't legally break that password, so then you have to write to the bank and have to rely on that bank to tell you the truth if there's any money in that account. And banks, as any deputy will know, are notoriously poor at helping you out.
Yeah.
Certain banks are worse than others. Certain banks, I won't say.
Yeah, some
which bank,
but some banks are more anxious of sharing information than others.
They are, yeah. And then it's bizarre because then you can go into the branch and they'll know you. So, it's this information. They'll give you the information.
Yeah.
So it's really weird. But with the asset search, obviously, we can do that under a deputyship, and we can do it if there's a will in place as well.
So just
if the person is deceased,
future
we can do
protection more than anything. Then obviously the best protection is getting a will.
Yeah.
And making sure that you have a wife and kids, I suppose. Probate kicks in and it's quite simple. But I'm just thinking as we go forward, I've got some Shibu coins, I've got a couple of Bitcoins, and you're all right with the financial. Yeah. They're going to be found, but digital currency. The whole point of it is that it's not traceable
because it sits on a special
it's
USB stick.
It's sat on my phone, sort of thing.
Yeah.
So potentially there's going to be people out there where
there's
bought into Bitcoins.
There's the guy that's got the Bitcoins on the hard drive that's in the dump. In Wales, and he said, "I'll buy the dump and dig it up." Yeah. And obviously the council.
He's still trying.
Yeah. I mean, what, something like 20 Bitcoins on there or something
I think
like
it's
that.
£60 million or something.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't blame him for absolutely losing the plot.
Yeah.
But there's also a point where it's gone, and even if he finds it, the chances are
of recovering it very slim. That's the whole thing. I can't talk about that because I don't really know.
But there's potential in 30, 40 years' time that there's going to be millions of pounds worth of Bitcoin out there that people have invested in, and if they haven't got wills,
who picks it up?
You wouldn't even know. Well, even the genealogy, you're not going to know.
Do you know what? That's a good subject for another night on the sofa. That is, find somebody else, because I haven't got the answer to that.
No, I'm quite tech savvy.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's a way.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's a financial asset that you wouldn't know about. It'd be like burying money in your garden.
Yeah.
Unless there's a stake there saying my money is buried here, the only people who know is archaeologists. But even then, potentially, with Bitcoin, it's
in the ether, isn't it? It's out there in the cloud. Frightening.
Yeah, it makes you wonder. Everyone sort of pushes and pushes on it, and actually, it's a little bit more dangerous than you maybe think. Yeah.
Wow.
Have we got another question? No, you're just stretching. Just stretching. Deputies can come to you and basically you can hunt down and find those beneficiaries.
Yeah.
We were saying about it being, or can be quite emotional conversations. One of the things that we touched on our training with you guys was about sudden wealth. Because lots of people don't think about that. Oh my God, I've won this lottery win of £50,000 from my great uncle that I never met, and I've got no emotional connection to. And all of a sudden they go from having no income, maybe, living on benefits, living in a council house, and all of a sudden they have £50,000 or £100,000 dropped in the lap, and it is a huge risk to them and a huge shock to their system.
Especially, as you say, somebody's on benefits and they continue claiming benefits and they've got that money, they're not advised they shouldn't be claiming it or anything like that. So, I would imagine that the duty of care is with the solicitors, and they would
Yeah.
advise if it was a substantial amount of money, and they advise people on what to do with it, where to do with it.
Yeah, I mean, from our research, when we looked at it, the risk of financial abuse skyrockets.
Oh yeah,
When
Yeah.
you've got sudden wealth, and it doesn't have to be a large amount, because you can have somebody that's earning £100,000 a year,
Yeah.
has got their £500,000 a household paid for,
Yeah.
and they get £50,000 dropped in the bank account. Me and Kerry had some money given to us a couple of years ago, and we went, oh, fantastic, we'll put that in the account and we'll give it 6 months and kind of have a think about what we want to do with it.
Yeah.
And that was quite nice, because we had some money. It wasn't, it was a nice amount, but it wasn't overwhelming to us. And then you can have people where they get £1,000, and actually
That will overwhelm.
that's overwhelming, and
Yeah.
they've ruined half their life by going out and going, well, I'll use it for a deposit on a brand new Mercedes.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden they're £40,000-50,000 in debt because they had this small amount, or not small amount, but what it could be perceived as a small amount. So I think, and we've had these discussions with you guys, not so much with deputies and solicitors, but the financial vulnerability that sudden wealth can cause is actually quite large, especially for ladies, and the risk for women who find themselves financially vulnerable is huge.
It is, yeah. I mean, we were chatting beforehand about a guy that I know, Paul Smith, who's a forensic consultant, and some of the stories he comes out with about, inheritances and people being abused and the entitled inheritance as well, where somebody's parents are still alive but they've got money, but that's going to be my money when they die. That kind of thing, that thing. So you've got all that. I think the legal profession is probably much better now at dealing with that and advising people and making sure there's that holistic care.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, we wouldn't have gone down the road of asking to do capacity awareness training if we weren't caring about what we do.
No, absolutely, yeah.
Because we've got to understand that you're talking to somebody and something's not right there. What is it? If it triggers something in that person's mind, then we can raise the alarm bells.
And I think that I didn't want to go into mental capacity, but
but we're ended up there. Of course you do.
You can't help it. But no, you're right. You can't just give somebody £50,000, £100,000, knowing nothing about that person, to then find out actually they should be under a deputyship themselves. They've got severe learning disabilities, or there's some dementia potentially, or something like that.
It's amazing how many cases we get through where there is a deputy in place or an attorney. Obviously, it's one of our things that we do. We do an OPG. Is it OPG 100? Isn't it?
Yeah.
We do the OPG 100 search to find out if there's something on the register.
And because the people that have passed away are going to be in their 80s, 90s, which means that their children, the previous generation, is going to be in their 70s.
Yeah.
So they're at that age where actually we say about this about lasting powers of attorney. It's fine, it's lovely that you're putting your wife as your attorney, but she's going to be sitting in the care home next to you.
Yeah.
And they'll say, well, I'll put my children. I'm like, well, I'm not being funny, but you're only 70, your children are 50. By the time you get to 90, they'll be 70.
Yeah.
Do you want to consider actually grandchildren?
Yeah.
Because actually they'll be in their 40s and 50s by the time you're in your 90s, and we see it quite often where grandchildren.
You're making me think about my mother-in-law now. My wife is her, and my sister-in-law.
I mean, when you're my age, your age, you're no older than me. We don't want to think like that at all, but actually you do. So I suppose it's the same with you guys. The beneficiaries are going to be in their potentially 60s and 70s.
It is, yeah. It spreads it out. I mean, if you take my case, for example, you've got my aunts who are still alive, who are in their late 80s, 90s, and then you've got my cousins who spread from mid-70s down to late 40s. Late 40s. So we've got that spread there of those people that, it covers a whole range. As I say, I think there's a lot more care from the legal profession about what they do with the people that they look after, and they just don't dump them in it.
No, and I think you see this idea, like I said, on Heir Hunters TV show, this is like a lottery win almost, and it's going to this family that they're going to spend it to go on their dream holiday, or they're going to renovate their house with it, or whatever it is, sort of thing, and it's like this beautiful story. But in reality, that's
it's
not
not true. No,
works,
it's not.
it?
No,
and dropping £50,000 on somebody without that wraparound care, it leaves them. I mean, I'm trying to remember some of the figures. I think it's if you've got and sadly it is a lot about women. Is something like 1 in 8 women that are in their lifetime have some sort of economic abuse placed on them. If you're one of those unfortunate ladies that's 1 in 8, there's a higher risk of physical abuse. If you're one of the 1 in 3, I think it was, from that 1 in 8 that suffers physical abuse, you're at higher risk of being killed. So the steps are absolutely
all links up, doesn't it?
horrific. And I said at the end of the training that we did for you guys that we don't do financial vulnerability assessments or anything. We offer them, but we've never done them. It's not something that people pick up on. I think that the training and having an understanding of that vulnerability is so important, because it doesn't matter if we did. I think we trained about 30 or 40 of you guys on it.
Yeah, I think we probably need it more, because we've added another 30 stuff.
Come across anybody, if they never identify anybody, and one person in 20 years gets identified and gets support, and they live, it was all worth it. We saved somebody's life, or potentially saved their life. So I think that's for me, that's probably one of the key takeaways from all this, is that if you're a deputy or you're an attorney, your services are fantastic, and there's a definite split. But they also have to be aware that they have some ethical and moral obligations to ensure there's wraparound services from financial advisors, making sure that there's, is an attorney or a deputy required for that person, that beneficiary, because you could be potentially placing somebody at serious risk. I mean, they could be in a domestic violence situation themselves, or anything like that. That money might get paid into their bank account and disappear out to somebody else's bank account. I mean, we see this with, unfortunately, with people that are still alive, as you were saying, that abuse of wills. Before, it's my money now. Mum's in a care home. Mum doesn't need mum can stay in her own home because then she doesn't have to pay for a care. All of those sorts of things.
She does, but that's another thing. But there we go. It's.
I think the worst one that I heard was a lady where they'd moved her out of her bungalow into their house because they didn't want her to have to pay for her carers, and they didn't want to have to pay for a care home. And they then rented out her bungalow to make a profit on it. And she was living downstairs having strip washes in the kitchen in front of her son-in-law. And they were quite open that it was, well, it's my inheritance. Why should she? I can care for her here, and then I don't lose my inheritance.
That's their money. You should be using that. It is what it is.
I mean, that would solve all of you. I mean, it'd put you out of business, wouldn't
probably
it?
Would do.
If all of these people went and spent it on care.
To be honest, it probably wouldn't. Because a lot of our business is, as I said at the start, is actually finding beneficiaries of wills that have gone missing, finding executors, making sure that we get the right people. Finding the wills in as well. So. I don't think we'd be out of business. We probably would.
So it's finding the will as well. Then it's not just so you can have somebody come and say. And I know there's a national will register, isn't there? So
there's various registers all over the place. There isn't one place to register it. You can register your will with the probate registry, I believe, but that's I don't quote me on that. Let's say. But there are several will registers that you can put it, certainty being one, I believe that's one, isn't it? Will register. Anyway, that rings a bell. But then again, you could lodge your will with a solicitor. So we do a will search for people, and it will hit a 30-mile radius around where that person lived. We'd hit every solicitor in that area. We'd register with the banks. We'd go with the will, the will banks, just to find if that was there. And then obviously you look and see if there were any records of a solicitor that are closed down, and that person, it may be, we dealt with one a couple of weeks ago where we had the letter and we had the will, the draft will, but she hadn't signed it. So do they have the original will? So we rang the solicitors. Solicitors said yes. She came in to us. She didn't sign the will.
So would the draft will inform? Would it have
It
any
informs, but technically no.
No.
Because it's not signed. It can be, I mean, it has been disputed over the years that the big estates will go off and be disputed and stuff like that. But the smaller estates, no, it probably would inform, but you know.
Because I always wonder with our capacity assessments, obviously that we detail what the client is going to and where and who and everything else.
Let me give you an example. I dealt with a case 10, 15 years ago where I had a chap who had learning disabilities make an easy read will.
Okay.
He was worked through, he had testamentary capacity, it was all guaranteed, everything, but he just hadn't signed it. He hadn't got to the stage where he signed it. He made certain instructions where he wanted his money to go to. And because he hadn't signed it, it had to go off, and next of kin were traced and next of kin were contacted. And it wasn't a huge estate.
Yeah.
It was a few £1,000s. And we said to them, there's the easy reward, this is what he wanted. I've still to this day don't know if they followed that. I
So
probably
it's almost like
believe
use
they
the
don't.
letter of wishes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't believe they did.
Yeah.
So it's, you know, the main thing is if you've made a will, sign it.
The problem is that's really difficult.
And sign it properly as well. Make sure you've got two independent executors.
Because
witnesses, not the executor signing it.
the nice ethical
Yeah.
part of me goes, oh no, if that was me,
Yeah.
and I got £10,000
Yeah.
come through, but
Yeah.
his wishes were for it to go to aged care concern
Yeah.
and the donkey sanctuary,
Yeah.
I would make sure, would I know ethically,
ethically
and sitting here right
Yeah.
now, of course, absolutely I would follow
Yeah.
that person's wishes, but legally I don't have to.
No.
And then when I'm sat there with that money in my bank account,
Right.
and I suppose then it comes down to how much are your morals worth.
Well, that's it. Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
if it's
yeah.
£2 million,
Yeah.
you know, if it's £500, oh well, you know, that's
Yeah.
okay. If it's £5 million, are you still giving £2.5 million to the donkey sanctuary? I can well believe that for the beneficiaries, that is a very, very difficult situation that they're in.
It is, and it's down to them. So at the end of the day, you know, if you've made a will, sign it.
Yeah.
That's the main thing.
Yeah.
And make sure, as I
Yeah.
say, you get it witnessed independently. The
Yeah.
executor doesn't sign it or anything like that. Or the
Yeah,
beneficiaries don't sign
Yeah,
it.
it's about making it. It's like anything, isn't it? Whether it's LPAs or
Yeah.
wills, trusts. It's about making sure that they're as robust as possible, isn't it? It's making sure that you've got independent people signing, whether it's the solicitors or whether it's people from off the street coming in to sign them. Same with LPAs. I was talking to somebody like this the other day. I got asked to drive all the way from Grantham, Lancashire, all the way down to Southampton to act as a certificate provider, which I really didn't want to do. It's like a 4-hour drive there, 4 hours back for 5 minutes work.
Yeah.
And I think we usually charge £120 to
Yeah.
act as purely just a certificate provider. But then obviously we had to charge for travel.
Yeah.
And the cost was just going up and up and up. And we even said, look, we can do this on, but you've got no mental health problems. You're in the prime of your life.
Yeah.
We could do this via video link if necessary. You know, it was just after or during COVID times.
Yeah.
And he was like, no, and it has to be Ben. I don't want the local one coming down. It has to be the director. Oh, God. And I can remember getting there, and I even rang Kerry, our other director. I said, look, I'm going in. This is all very weird. So if I don't call you within an hour, can you ring the police? Because we could be being set up here for something horrible. And okay, you know, touch wood, that's never happened, but we have to be aware of it. The title of social worker puts you in some danger sometimes. And I turned up and walked in, lovely man, acted as CP provider. I said, I'll do your witness signatures while I'm here. And he says, oh, no, I don't want you doing that. And I said, no, I'm allowed to, that's fine. No, I've got my neighbours coming to do that. They're going to act as my witness. I've already organised another witness that will be my donors. And he was like, no, I'm doing this complete everything.
Yeah.
And I was like, can I ask, is there any, is anyone going to contest this? And he's like, no, I've got no children. This is all being, I just want to make sure we do it legitimately.
Brilliant.
Fair enough. Yeah, absolutely.
Brilliant.
The chances of anybody being able to contest that lasting power of attorney is so limited, because he had literally like 3 or 4 different witnesses for every signature. Yeah, unbelievable. But it was completely robust. And I think a lot of the time we see wills that they've done what's required. Yeah. And that's it. I think and they're the ones that then can be contested on.
Cross the T's, dot the I's, make sure there's nothing that can be contested by anybody. Yeah. Obviously.
Yeah. And that can be a mental capacity. Yeah. It can be that actually your signature doesn't look like any of your other signatures. It was signed by one of the beneficiaries, witnessed by a beneficiary, or it was witnessed by the beneficiary's partner. Yeah. I have seen that one where the partner isn't involved, isn't a beneficiary, isn't an executor, but the partner of the beneficiary is signed as a witness. I mean, if I was the son that had been discounted, I would be then saying, hang on a second. There's undue influence.
The undue influence, and it's all dangerous territory.
Yeah.
That, so yeah.
The other thing I wanted to ask you about and to talk about is cultural, because without trying to get into really dangerous and hot waters, we've assessed quite a few people from Jamaica over the years, and I will tell you a story. In fact, that story is a prime example, but it's a funny story as well. I was asked to assess a grandmother. There was grandson and daughter there. They wanted the assessment doing somewhere privately, so they organised a hotel, which we do occasionally, hotel meeting rooms and things like that. It's not unusual.